I, 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 I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it and burned that. Man, the way that I live don't concern that. Man, we gon' have to settle this another.
Welcome to another edition of Critical Insight in Your World News. I'm your host, Solomon Kamajan, and our featured guest today is hip-hop group Rebel Diaz. It's an honor to have this hip-hop trio in our studio today, our virtual studio, joining us live from the Bronx. That's G1, that's Rod Stars, and that's DJ Illinois. Welcome to Your World News on Critical Insight, brothers.
What's up, man? Peace. We even got the little mobile thing, you know what I mean? So
yeah. That's right. We can move it around. Yeah.
We high tech with it.
We can freestyle this. So my first question, and anyone take a stab at it. I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling by asking you guys about your background in terms of what motivates you to write and perform the music that you do, because the music that you do is very politically conscious, I would say, very socially conscious. You touch on a lot of issues that are near and dear to myself, as well as our audience in general. So I just want to kind of pick your brains in terms of what motivates you to write what you do and to perform how you do.
I mean, for us, me and G, we brothers, you know what I'm saying? And our parents were in revolutionary organizations and in the late 60s and early 70s that led to the election of the first, ever socialist president in Chile, which was Salvador Allende. Right. And as history has, told us, in September 11th, we call it the first September 11th, 1973, that democratically elected government was violently overthrown by a CIA-funded military dictatorship by Augusto Pinochet. So we like to say that we were born into the struggle. You know what I'm saying? I was born in England. Because of that, we are the products of exile. That's right. You know what I'm saying? We're the products of U.S. foreign policy. You know what I mean? So you mix that up with growing up in Chicago, you know what I mean, in the early 80s and the 90s, when we had Harold Washington as the first black mayor, when you had the legacy of Rudy Lozano. Mm-hmm. I mean, we come from an organizing background, but we also come from a city, a working class city that, received all these immigrants and at the same time had a solidarity movement that was very powerful. I grew up, under the table of political meetings, going to meetings from everything from, ending apartheid in South Africa to, freedom for Palestine, or, the solidarity movements with all the Central American countries, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, that were also having, problems with Oliver North and the CIA. So I think that that's really the history politically of what we in Illa.
I was born and raised in Chicago. I'm first born on both sides. I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's Mexican. They were the first. I'm first generation born in the States. So I witnessed my parents being the working family. They would work and do everything by the books, and they would still come out wrong.
So I appreciate you putting things in perspective, and as you know, the CIA and U.S. foreign policy has a very nefarious and long history in Latin America, as well as much of the world. We see in 1954, the CIA and U.S. foreign policy and doing their dastardly deeds in Guatemala in terms of overthrowing Jacobo Arbenz. We know what they did, with Omar Torrijos in Panama. We know Ecuador with Jaime Rolos, and obviously, the CIA started, so-called, officially started its campaigns of coups in 1953 in Iran. And so that being said, and we look at, for instance, somebody that you had a relationship with, somebody that's also near and dear to the hearts of Your World News, and that's Hugo Chavez, who recently passed away, and may he rest in peace and rest in power. I know that you guys had the opportunity to actually meet Hugo Chavez, and I mentioned all the stuff with the coups because we know that the CIA backed that coup, back in the early 2000s, that took him out of power for 2 days, and it shows the power of the revolution where the military, members of the military actually reversed it. It said, what, we're going to restore him to power. We're not going to actually go through the plans. We're not going to kill him, and he was thankfully brought back to power within 2 days. I wanted to ask you, what are your personal thoughts with Hugo Chavez, and I would say even I think he would say more importantly the revolution that he helped ignite, the Bolivarian Revolution. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for us, we always like to say it real clearly. We never had Bush or Obama visit the South Bronx, where we live, which is the poorest congressional district in the United States. But in 2005, Hugo Chavez did come here to the South Bronx. And when he came, he didn't just come here to meet with other politicians or with, businessmen or foundations. He came here and met with the people. Usually sometimes you get visits from politicians and they'll do a quick walkthrough, take a few pictures and be up. Chavez came, stayed, built with the people, had conversations with different organizations that do community work here in the Bronx, learning from us. And I think that's the essence of what Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution was all about. That it's about the people power. It's about connecting with everyday folks that are living their daily lives and seeing how we can empower poor people to be able to make active decisions in terms of their future and living a life of dignity. And I think that's what to me that's the most significant victory of the Bolivarian Revolution, not only in Venezuela but on an international level, is this idea that we can have a say in our future. That simple, you know what I'm saying? And I think that here in the United States, unfortunately, through being dumbed down by the mass media and all these other things, we've lost that, you know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, I think that Chavez reignited that idea of people power. That we also, again, like Rod was saying, we come from that legacy of people power during Allende's time, and not only Allende but also the revolutionary organizations like MID, the Revolutionary Movement of the Left, which was a revolutionary organization in Chile during that time. That idea of people power really was brought back to the forefront for the 21st century idea of people power and socialism. So for us, we realize that the global system of oppression is as large and globalized, and what Chavez brought to the forefront was the idea that international solidarity amongst poor people is necessary if we're going to have any type of victories. And he did it in concrete ways. After coming to the Bronx, a year later, he started Petro Bronx, organization to be able to give subsidized low cost heating oil for poor people here in the Bronx. That was followed up by a social development fund where he invested millions of dollars through Citgo, which is a subsidiary of the nationalized oil company in Venezuela, where they were investing in and giving money to different or community organizations that were on the ground doing work that reflected the values of the Bolivarian Revolution. And we were direct recipients of that aid. Through that support, we were able to start the Nuestra America Media Center within our community center here in the Bronx. But we were able to teach young people how to look at mass media critically and give them the tools to be able to create their own media.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? So imagine that level of direct action.
Yes.
Is again testament to this idea of international solidarity and that all of our struggles are connected. And I think that's one of the biggest legacies that Chavez left us.
I want to just touch on something real quick. Just with the timeliness of it, right now, this moment, people are in the streets in Venezuela. The U.S. government still, we got to call it for what it is. The fact that they still have not recognized the victory by Nicolás Maduro, coming from a background where in electoral politics, the U.S. has had some of the closest stolen elections.
Exactly.
In recent time. Find it ironic, but we're not surprised because we know that it is not in the U.S. And capitalism's interest for the Bolivarian Revolution to continue. And I think that when we touch on U.S. foreign policy, especially with our case in Chile, we got to understand that this was an experiment, an economic experiment for what we're seeing today, which is a neoliberal, economic model. We're seeing that in our education system. It all comes around full circle. The economists that planned these dictatorships in Chile, were University of Chicago trained, economists. And I think that the Bolivarian Revolution is a fight against globalization, against privatization, against a lot of what we're seeing being implemented here now in our educational system, in how everything is being privatized, prisons, you know what I mean? They're the gas, the air. So I think that it's important to make a lot of these connections, and I think that more than anything to us, Chavez represents a champion for poor people all over the world, and someone who on an international stage stood up and called it for what it was. You know what I mean? And I think that, as people that believe in liberation and that believe in freedom, I think that we definitely look at that as an example. And how we say now, todos somos Chavez, we got to work like Chavez. And it's up to us to spread those beliefs everywhere.
That's right, and I love that song. I love that song and that video you guys put together called Work Like Chavez.
Los que mueren por la vida no pueden llamarse muertos. Y a partir de este momento es prohibido llorarlos.
Compañero Hugo Chávez, presente, la revolución bolivariana, presente, let's go. Yo en Caracas, el proceso va para adelante. And in Chicago, el proceso va para adelante. Yo in the South Bronx, el proceso va para adelante. It goes worldwide, el proceso va para adelante. I can't front, I'm upset that they took our building. Next thing, the comandante, man, I know they killed them. Something going on, I gotta read the signs. Something telling me that it's about that time. Time to step it up, cause I still smell sulfur. Still smell the money in this capitalist culture. I'm dedicating verses to my boy Jamil. He out there in Venezuela, front line is real. Hunts Point, New York, 2005. That's when I realized the revolution's so alive. We ain't never had a president come around mine. He brought oil for the poor in the winter time. He showed love to the Bronx, that's called solidarity. We show love back, ain't no politician scaring me. Anti-imperialist, till I go delirious. The work is getting serious, that's why they keep fearing us. Do the mathematics, Hugo Chavez was the baddest. I gotta work like Chavez. Do the mathematics, Hugo Chavez was the baddest. I gotta work like Chavez. Yo en Caracas, el proceso va para adelante. And in Chicago, el proceso va para adelante. Yo in the South Bronx, el proceso va para adelante. It goes worldwide, el proceso va para adelante. Forward, this movement ain't defeated. La lucha sigue, dentro de todos esa rebeldía existe. La CIA comete crimen, igual las ideas viven. Aquí el pueblo decide, no lo que los medios dicen. Quieren parar una cultura alternativa. Fíjate desde el Bronx hasta América Latina. Capitalistas van, capitalistas vienen. Buscan tus bienes, quieren hacer lo que quieren. Ahora decimos no, no al imperialismo. Neoliberalismo, los bancos, los ricos. Ni un millonario, Chávez fue solidario. Ni Bush ni Obama llegaron a ayudarnos. No lo olvidamos más que venezolano. Esto cruza fronteras, hip hop bolivariano. América unida, como creamos ese frente. Solidaridad por todo el continente. Do the mathematics, Hugo Chavez was the baddest. I gotta work like Chavez. Do the mathematics, Hugo Chavez was the baddest. I gotta work like Chavez. Yo en Caracas, el proceso va para adelante. And in Chicago, el proceso va para adelante. Yo in the South Bronx, el proceso va para adelante. It goes worldwide, el proceso va para adelante. El proceso va para adelante.
And I'm really glad that you tied everything together. That y'all connected the dots to everything that's been going on. When you connected to the Chicago boys and Milton Friedman, who went down there and helped orchestrate that coup that took out Allende and put in Pinochet. And we look at Ronald Reagan, who was a big fan, he was a humongous fan of Milton Friedman's economics. And then we look at Obama, who's in office right now, who is a humongous fan of Reagan, and he makes no bones about it. In 2010, he took out a full-page ad in USA Today, genuflecting and groveling, just extolling, Ronald Reagan as if he was some kind of saint. And those of us, folks of color, blacks and Latinos, who lived through the 80s, we know that Reagan was,
no friend of mine,
none whatsoever. So you mentioned capitalism. We're talking about capitalism. And chime in anytime you want. I mean, if you want to go on Reagan, this is the platform to do it, because we are no friends of Reagan, and we definitely are no friends of Barack Obama in any shape, form, or fashion, or Arnie Duncan, which we're going to get into the schools, starting with Chicago. But my next question to you is looking at capitalism. Can you give us your thoughts in terms of the role corporations and capitalism in general have played in hip hop, and how they have played a role in suppressing music from groups and individuals like yourselves from making its way?
Like I let G go talk to, but the first thing that popped into my mind, I was reading recently. So, Interscope Records, you know what I'm saying? Interscope Records recently signed a young man out of Chicago by the name of Chief Keef.
Oh,
Chief Keef, right? 16 years old, a product of the environment, right, that is in Chicago.
Right.
Okay, gangs, violence, not lack of access to proper and dignified housing, education, the whole environment. Then you look at Interscope Records and who else they've dealt with that's been involved in violent beefs. You got Death Row, you got Dr. Dre, right? You got 50 Cent.
Yeah.
And then you look at who owns Interscope Records. Wait a minute. General Electric.
Yeah.
Who is one of the biggest supporters and financiers of the prison industrial complex? General Electric. So that just to me is, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not, I don't have a college degree, but it's very clear that the same people that are funding a lot of the nonsense messages like materialism, individualism, we've had a historic level of idiocy in the lyrics that are coming out of some of these, mainstream rappers. We got LL Cool J, accepted in a pod, trading in. If you look at my gold chains, I'll forget the iron chains. Rest in peace, Robert Lee. Thank you, Abraham Lincoln, for freeing me. This is LL Cool J.
He recently, I missed that one. He said that?
He has a song called Accidental Racist, where the hook is like, I'm a white man from the South. Like, it's insane. I don't even want to talk about it. So then we got Rick Ross promoting date rape, you know what I mean? And not metaphorically, like, just in a very scary way. Like, you hear that, like, I feel like this is a practice that you've done. You know what I mean? And this is what you're promoting. Yeah. So I think that when you look at who are the people that are pushing, you know what I mean, these artists are now an agent for capitalism.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And who are the corporations that are pushing them? They're the same corporations that own the media, that monopolize the media, the same corporations that monopolize the failing, music industry, and then the same corporations that are financing the prison industrial complex. You know what I'm saying?
And just to chime in too, like, we talk about Milton Friedman and neoliberalism and all that. Like, it's also important to note that in the lifespan of hip hop culture in the last 40 years, there's also been a huge transformation in the global economy. You know what I'm saying? Like, capitalism was in crisis, as it always is gonna be. You know what I mean? And in the 70s, when that crisis hit, it was like, okay, we need to do something different. You know what I'm saying? And you see what's happening. The lifetime of hip hop culture, 1970, you had the decade that hip hop started, you had 400,000 people locked up in this country. Right. You look at that number now, it's increased by almost 500%, almost 3 million. When you include all the people on parole, probation, house arrest, or outright incarcerated, it's 10 million. You know what I'm saying? So the bottom line is that the structure of the global economy has created a surplus workforce that's just not needed. You know what I mean? That's just not needed. There's entire communities that don't fit into the global economy, and as Dutch, we are bodies to be disposed of. You know what I mean? And so what we seeing is the rap music industry increasingly becoming a mouthpiece for those ideas that black and brown young male bodies and female bodies are expendable. They're not worth nothing. They're supposed to be locked up and that's it. You know what I mean? So we see that. We see it in the increased criminalization of public space. You know what I mean? And when hip hop started, we went and took over public parks. And we stole the light from the electric pole. And we ain't asked for no permit, no assembly permit, no sound permit, none of that. Those same public spaces today, you can't even walk down the street in the Bronx without getting stopped and frisked. You know what I mean? So it's like that we realize that all these things is connected. You know what I mean? Like we see in '96 you had they deregulated all the FCC stuff. So now you have Clear Channel that can own 8 radio stations in one city. And effectively, you end up having a small amount of people in control of the messages that we hear, and increasingly those messages are always going to be able to benefit their interests and their profit, and that's resulting in mass incarceration and what is increasingly becoming genocidal. You know what I'm saying?
It's a slow genocide.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I mean, we could do a show. I have another question, but we could do a show by ourselves. Just on that. Yeah, just on that, and breaking down these lyrics, man. You look at. I mean, I haven't heard that LL Cool J song yet, but I have heard.
You don't want to hear it, man.
Yeah, I don't want. Yeah, I probably don't.
Just read it. Just read it if you want. But don't hear it.
Yeah, I'll just read it. But you
old thought that you had of LL Cool J.
Yeah. And someone who I never had any good thoughts about, and that's Trinidad James. And you saw his song "Gold Everything." And he's in his video. He's wearing a Confederate war cap. He's wearing a Confederate war cap on his head. I mean, and this is beyond also the reprehensible lyrics that he has throughout his song. Gold Everything. But yeah, when you were saying that, man, LL Cool J referenced like Robert E. Lee and
he said rest in peace, Robert.
He said rest in peace, Robert E. Lee.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you for freeing me.
No way! Oh,
he tells the dude.
I look just like the same thing. Like
he tells her. He said, dude said, if you can look past my do rag, I'll look past your red flag.
horrible.
It's horrific.
Oh,
look, I mean, yeah, but to me, we gotta understand, like when the whole Rick Ross thing happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, your name is Rick Ross.
Yeah. Enough said.
You're a former correctional officer named after one of the biggest, drug dealers that worked with the CIA. Because if you dealt that much drugs and you a free man, like, you worked with the CIA. This is on record. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this is the dude you name yourself after. Yeah. You take his identity. You know what I mean? With this fake gangster persona, because obviously you're not a gangster because you're a former CO. Yeah. And then. Like, and it's insane. Like, what are we surprised?
Too, you know what I'm saying? Well, we also like we like to kind of get these conversations to also talk about what we're doing as an alternative. You know what I mean? Exactly. We could talk all day about how the rap music industry is, is being agents of capitalism and contributing to the genocide of our people. But what are we doing then? To create alternatives, and that's really what been the gist of our community work here in the Bronx for the last few years. You know what I mean? And really this idea, and back in the day, you had a public enemy that was a balance to NWA. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or you have for the De La Soul, the Tribe Called Quest.
Poor Righteous.
You know what I'm saying? So like for us, it's like, yo, what can we do to create more public enemies, more immortal techniques, more Rebel Diaz, more Dead Prez. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's I think one of the main things that we need to focus on, because we could rap a million things. On record, but what we're doing on our daily work to be able to create infrastructure for more young people to be able to have access to that knowledge, to be able to have access to technology, to be able to create their music, and you know what I'm saying. So that to us, that's one of the main focuses that we have in our work here day to day in the Bronx.
And speaking of that infrastructure, perfect segue. Speaking of that infrastructure that you guys have been a part of building, have built, and are sustaining. Can you talk about the Arts Collective that you and other artists helped start, and also talk to us about what happened in February with that Arts Collective in regards, and actually if you can connect the dots to why you think those attacks came, that they were targeted not just from your the landlord and why he decided to evict you, but also what image was put up that you think that I guess police officers complained to him about, because I think that will be real instructive for folks to really know what's behind, the suppression of a lot of these images and messages that come from groups like yourself.
Right. So one of our main slogans or mottos or ways of life is you can't just oppose, you got to propose. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So we already know, like, we make a clear differential between hip hop culture and the rap music industry, or how our sister Rosa Clemente has called it, the rap industrial complex. You know what I'm saying? And we're in the birthplace of hip hop. We're in the South Bronx, and we realize, look, it's crazy as hell to us that in the birthplace of hip hop, with all the millions of dollars created, there's not one hip hop community center. You know what I'm saying? That's like dedicated to the culture. So 4.5 years ago, before Occupy anything, we took over, you know what I'm saying, an abandoned candy factory and turned it into a 5,000 square foot, people's hip hop community center. For the community, by the community. It was created out of a crew out of this neighborhood in Hunts Point, to be specific, you know what I'm saying, Hunts Point, New York, South Bronx. But I think that for us, it's a response. You know what I'm saying? It's a response to be like, yo, this is what we need. We need a safe space. Whenever you have that type of energy, you're going to have a clash with the system. You know what I mean? The police, our space was a response to an attack by the police on me and G. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the funds, we ended up beating the case with the police. You know what I mean? Took the police to court, won that case, got some funds off that. You know what I mean? Ended up building a relationship with the Venezuelan Revolution. They gave us funding for part of it. So you're already dealing with a lot of factors that are problematic to the system that we live in. That's right. Then you have graffiti. You know, graffiti is one of, I consider one of the most rebellious elements of hip hop culture, because it's the one that you put your freedom on the line. Even though, you know, the B-boys and the B-girls, when they dance in the streets, do it, and whatever. But to me, the graffiti rebelliousness has always been a key element of hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we supported that, and we started having murals. We had I Love Gaza, then we followed that up with No Human Being is Illegal. These aren't little murals, B. These are 70-foot long, 12-foot, like each letter is 2 times as tall as a 6-foot man. You know what I mean? 12 feet letters that say no human being is illegal. I am Troy Davis. Now, none of these gave us problems. You know what I mean? We had press, journalists, because you could see them off the expressway. Until last year, right around this time, or a little bit later, around Mumia's birthday, we put up Free Mumia 2012. You know what I mean? That was a problem. That was a problem. Because Mumia, you know what I mean, is, even though he's been, you know, behind bars, he is one of the, you know, he is freer than the majority of us who are out here in the world.
That's right. And
his power spreads, you know what I mean, and to this day still, you know, irks the policeman. But that's a factor. But one of the main factors that we dealt with is gentrification. You know what I mean? The South Bronx has been all over the press lately. The real estate developers are trying to sell it as Sobro. We call it the final frontier. You know what I mean? The burned down borough has now caught the attention of real estate developers and Mike Bloomberg. And it's a rapid, you know, form of gentrification that's going on, in which our people are being displaced. You know, we were displaced, but then you look at other organizations in the South Bronx that are also being shut down. Casa Alta VHC, Mothers on the Move, under attack, you know what I mean, because of gentrification, which is a force that is displacing people. You know what I mean? And who are the ones that are displacing us? We have, you know, hipsters, we have, you know, yuppies, you have young professionals from other places that want a faster commute to the city, and at the expense of that, you know what I mean, people are being displaced. And, you know, a block away from our community center, they built, they broke ground already on a 16-foot story condo, right, with 1-bedroom apartment starting at $1,300. $1,300 for a 1-bedroom apartment in the South Bronx? Yeah. Like, right. Once again,
mind you, for reference, the average median income over here is about $1,100 or $1,000 a month.
You know what I'm saying? So we know what it is. Yeah. The owner, like most land owners, you know what I mean, was very clear. He said, I am a commercial businessman. I don't want nothing to do with a community center. You know what I mean? So, you know, and it's also opportunism on his part. We invested money into this abandoned building. We brought it up to code. We fixed it. But more than anything, what we pushing now is we done with that physical space. The collective is still alive. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? The RDAC BX is a collective of 25 amazing artists, educators. We got college professors on the roster. We got MCs, DJs, you know what I'm saying, carpenters, teachers, I mean, it's a collective of folks from the South Bronx that are trying to do better, that view the idea of local organizing as a powerful concept. You know what I'm saying? We really stress people. Organize your hood, B.
Yeah.
If you can't organize 5 people on your immediate block, what are you talking about?
That's right.
If you can't organize 10 people on your block, we got to stop preaching to the choir. You know what I'm saying? So that energy is still alive. And, you know, what I want to share is that now we're having an online fundraising campaign on Indiegogo. You can go to our website, www.rdacbx.org. We trying to raise $50,000, and our goal is to no longer rent. We trying to take a building, fix it up, and give it back, and keep doing the work for the people. You know what I'm saying? So the Indiegogo campaign is an important one. You know what I'm saying? And we got $7,000 raised already, and we got $43,000 to go. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely count on the viewer support to help us out with what we're doing, and really to push this initiative out. You know what I'm saying? So
that's right.
RDAC BX.
We'll put that up there, you know, on this interview, so people that are watching right now, they are seeing that, and so I'm really encouraging folks to please go to that website and give what you can. You know, even if it's $1, $5, give what you can. This is vastly important. This is the kind of work that we need to all be supporting. And given that, because it's about education, it's about education. You know. The media work that you're doing with young people, help them deconstruct dominant media narratives that are fed to all of us on a day-to-day basis, but especially the impressionable, the young people, and teaching them how to deconstruct these dominant narratives before they become a part of them, before they become, you know, who they are. When it comes to education, all of you were educated in Chicago public schools. I want you to talk to me about, all of you, and definitely you too, Brother DJ, Illinois. What impact did Chicago public schools have on you? Have on, you know, who you are today? And if you can follow up, like, what are your thoughts on the current attacks that we're seeing in Chicago public schools today, where they're trying to shut down, you know, close 54 schools. You know, Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, the former chief of staff for Barack Obama, his close buddy. Teachers unions are being viciously attacked, not just in Chicago but nationwide. So what do you think about that? You know, but first, what does Chicago public schools mean to you? Because I know, you know, I love, that's one of the songs, one of my favorite songs by you is the song that you guys had that talks about your adoration for Chicago public schools and the teachers within Chicago public schools.
Well, I want to say that I went to a public school in Albany Park. Started with grade school from first grade all the way. It was supposed to be first through eighth, but when we got to sixth grade, there was a problem. The problem was it was overcrowdedness, and teachers didn't have enough time to teach each individual kid because our classrooms were 35, 40 kids in one class. It was too much for her. Imagine having 40 kids in one class. That's crazy. Yeah. So what they did was they created middle schools. So they took different schools and combined them into 7th and 8th grade. So you have different neighborhoods coming to one school, which was craziness because a lot of times there was a lot of gang fights. There was a bunch of stuff. But and if you look at it internally, like the kids from different schools that wanted to be on something like music or that was provided actually became like a lot of DJs. A lot of well-known DJs in Chicago all went to the same middle school, which is craziness. But yeah, it's a lot of craziness out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think with us, like on the whole education tip, like we believe that education is a human right. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, and I think that that access to quality public education, you know what I'm saying, is something that should be available to our young people, and sadly, it's not, and we don't think that this corporate model that they're trying to push is the answer. You know what I'm saying? Like the privatization of schools in which you have CEOs who have never stepped foot in a classroom calling shots on education policy is very disturbing. You know what I mean? like when connecting it back to the whole system that we live under, like our children aren't being taught to think anymore. They're being taught to memorize and take tests.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're creating robots. And if you don't fit into that robot, like G says in the lyrics, you don't want to join that corporate assembly line. You know what I'm saying? And then sadly, what's after public education? What do our public universities look like? What's young people of color access to higher education? You know what I'm saying? Because real talk, like it's hard to get a job even with a high school degree.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that even with a college degree, so I think that we need to really take a look at what's going on, and I think that we need to make those global connections. Like historically, we've seen some of the largest student uprisings in history in Montreal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The teacher strike in Chicago, right in line with the students uprising in Chile.
Chile, yeah.
It's that same near, like, and when we talk about these protests, this ain't 5,000 kids. This is 200,000.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that what we're seeing in Chicago is that Chicago is once again a model. You know what I mean? Like you said, the mayor used to be the chief of staff. Arnie Duncan. You know what I'm saying? Arnie Duncan started in Chicago.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm saying? And a lot of what we're seeing now, this whole idea of top-down education, is a lot of Arnie Duncan's policies. So I think that it's definitely important. And I think from a worker's perspective, it's important to see that this strike, by one of the largest teachers union, shows you also the power of teachers getting leadership in unions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Karen Lewis is a G.
Yeah, she sure is. Yeah.
A G. And I think that that when you look at Rahm Emanuel, we gotta call him for what he is. He's a neoliberal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? His policies are neoliberal policies, and he's pushing this whole charter school privatization model that we think is ruining. I mean, he just shut down 54 schools.
Exactly.
How do you shut down 54 schools and then wonder why there's violence in the streets?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And because we know these 54 schools are schools that are closed in the hood.
Yeah.
They're not schools on the Magnificent Mile or in the Gold Coast or in Lincoln Park. You know what I'm saying? So, but for us, our whole foundation, I learned how to read and write in Chicago schools.
Yeah.
I had teachers like Miss Dean and Miss McBride that taught me English and taught me how to write, and use grammar, and how to speak right. Like I say, I speak mad different languages because of this educational system.
That's right.
I learned how to speak professor, officer, and lawyer.
Right. Yeah. G1, did you have anything to say about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that moving forward, here in New York, we're seeing that there's a growing movement as well of that's coming from the bottom up, families that are refusing to take tests. There's a new, here in New York, there's a new statewide core curriculum that they're trying to implement, which will further increase standardized testing, further increase the lack of freedom for teachers to be able to teach a curriculum that's relevant to the children's lives. And there's a growing movement of families opting out of these tests, essentially doing civil disobedience inside the classroom and refusing to take these tests. Now, we fully support that. We feel that again, here in New York, the model, the charter school model that has been pioneered in Chicago is increasingly becoming widespread, and there needs to be some type of resistance to it. And if it has to come from a level of civil disobedience where we're refusing to take these tests, we stand in support of that fully. And in Chicago, there's talks of taking over some of these schools that they're kind of closed down. And here in New York, up until about 1970s, some of the schools you would have them open until 9 o'clock at night because they would provide community services to young people, to families in the community. We need to see a return to that. Our community center just got shut down while they, shutting down schools in Chicago. So what we're talking about is the recreation of safe spaces for young people to gather at, to be able to have safe spaces that's free of gang violence, of state violence. And we can't separate that from the struggle to stop this privatization of our school systems.
That's right.
Yeah, Feel this from the bottom of my heart, y'all. Truly inspired. Here we go. Come on, look, yo, homie, I was taught by a Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher. I learned to read and write from a Chicago teacher, so I'm inspired by the fight from my Chicago teachers. Homie, I was taught by a Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher. I learned to read and write from a Chicago teacher, so I'm inspired by the fight from my Chicago teachers. The teachers are tired, the students dumbfounded, the budgets get cut so classes are overcrowded. Streets full of violence, the blue code is silence, so I'ma keep rhyming till salaries start rising. The unions are rising, taken to the streets. The workers are united, so the mayors got beef. Rhymes a fake pretender with a corporate agenda, neoliberal offender. Of course you offend us. This ain't about money, that's far from the truth. They want better work conditions to teach the youth. Politicians, I don't trust them, it's all in the name. The president, the mayor, all want political gain. They'd rather put the kids in jail, shackle them with chains, than provide an education that challenges the brain. Top-down education, Chicago the birthplace. Now it's spread nationwide all over the place. They don't teach us how to think, they teach us how to test. They teach us how to work to put money in their checks. The CEOs need to get up out the classroom before these streets get hotter than the sand in Cancun. So join the picket line like Mr. Pickett in his prime. Put on your red shirt like the Bulls in 95. Hit the streets with a sign that say I'm fighting for mine. It's a fork in the road and you gotta choose a side. And yes, I'm proud to say I was a public school student. It was public school teachers that first taught me music. And yes, I'm proud to say I was a public school student. A public school teacher first taught me music. Homie, I was taught by a Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher. I learned to read and write from a Chicago teacher, so I'm inspired by the fight from my Chicago teachers. Went to Lil Lincoln School in a Lil school bus. Desegregation, pay 20 cents for lunch. Reduced price ticket for the lower income children. Art and music classes in between math and English. Now it's different, they just teaching to the test. Forced by the feds, or they losing that check. Too many children left behind by this corporate assembly line. How they privatize education is a human right, and they kids gon' be fine. They send them to private schools, while ours get sent to prison or given a job serving fast food. Cash rules, so it gets treated like a business. Bought and sold by businessmen turned politicians. So if Ron was the chief of staff and Arnie Duncan got his start in Chicago selling off the education system, then Obama gotta respond. The teachers or the corporations, which side is he on? The streets is getting hot, they blame the heat on Chief Keef, but it's a million others like him being created every week. If we don't teach, we don't learn, and the streets is gonna burn before it gets worse. I put on my red shirt cause, homie, I was taught by a Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher. I learned to read and write from a Chicago teacher, so I'm inspired by the fight from my Chicago teachers. Homie, I was taught by a Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher, Chicago teacher. I learned to read and write from a Chicago teacher, so I'm inspired by the fight from my Chicago teachers. Yeah, ha. Bateman Elementary, where Illinois went. Lincoln School, Lane Tech, Lincoln Park High School. DJ Illinois went to Roosevelt, and now he producing beats worldwide. Let's go.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that. I have one more question for you, but before I get to that question, I want to tell you that I really appreciate there's beyond the music that you produce, which is what initially drew me to you, is the music, the production, the lyrics, it's substantive lyrics, and I'll date myself. I'm a child of the golden era, so I grew up on BDP and KRS-One. Big Daddy Kane, Public Enemy. Public Enemy to this day is the most influential rap group that in my life to this day. I mean that album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, completely changed my life, politicized me as a teenager. And so, but when we look at, for instance, like Gangstar, one of my favorite hip hop duos of all time, is that when I grew up, every single hip hop group, they focused on, they gave the DJ his or her just due. The DJ didn't take a back seat to the MCs. They shared the stage together. And so you would always, you remember Primo would come on and, in the middle of a Gangstar song, and Primo would come on and he would cut it up. And so the fact that you guys feature a dope DJ yourself, DJ Illinois, it speaks volumes. Speaks volumes to you guys continue to uphold the tradition of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And some people say, oh, you can't say real hip. Well, I'm going to say it, like, to uphold the tradition of real quintessential hip hop. I mean, I'm going to say it.
Man,
I'm going to say it straight up. It's real hip hop. And DJ Illinois, man, I think you're dope. And I just wanted to ask you real quick, like, who are some of your influences as a DJ? When you first started, got into the game of DJing, who are some of your influences?
Wow, it's actually started in '92 when I was just 12 years old. I was introduced to turntables when I was 5.
Damn.
But I didn't actually touch a turntable when I was 12. I had some friends in the neighborhood that his brother would always go to the basement and you hear him play music, like, what is he doing? And we followed him. One day after me, I was like, what did your brother do? He's like, oh, he's playing music. We went downstairs, he had turntables, and I was like, what is that,
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, I haven't seen this in a long time type thing. Yeah. But my influences, like, same thing. I got, like, I look at, like, Qbert. I look at, Grand Wizard Theodore, you know what I'm saying? It's just, which was crazy. We had the honor to actually to be one of the guys from his workshops that we did this last December. We did South by South Bronx,
right?
And he actually taught a work class in one of our work classes, and it was just, man, it was just crazy. It was, yeah, but like a lot of old school DJs, I just look up to DMC DJs. It's just like I'm from that era. You know what I'm saying? I saw with my own eyes. I was born in the late 70s. 79, and then I saw the beginning. To me, that was the beginning to end. Not to end, but to keep going. And I want to continue it to keep going after, even when I pass. This is crazy.
Definitely.
So there's a bunch of DJs that even keep that tradition. Keep that coming up with new ideas. Yes, it's cool to be in the lane like everybody's doing, but sometimes you gotta go left. You know what I'm saying? Or right. You gotta go just to be original.
Yeah.
I want to thank you because Illinois usually just talks with his hands.
I used to talk.
He would never want to talk in an interview. This is the most you ever got to talk. That's what's up. I'm learning.
We got another surprise. Well, Rock got another surprise.
Oh yeah, so look, as you was talking, I got up, not because I wasn't listening, is that we was in North Carolina 2 days ago, and these guys go digging. I don't be digging, I'm not a DJ or producer, so sometimes I just be copying, I got the CDs. I got Public Enemy right here,
That's
you digs.
Right there, Pair of Black Planet.
I just picked them up just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I'm about to get back on. I got Fear of Black Planet and Apocalypse 91. Man.
And you know what Sleeper is their very first album, Yo Bummer's the Show. I was just listening to that in my iPod this morning when I was working out. But Yo Bummer's the Show is dope. It's their first one right before it kicks in the millions. Yeah, to hold us back. But I mean, just talking to you, man, like DJ Illinois, man, I was just thinking about Scott LaRock and Evil D and Diamond D.
I'm blessed to be in the Bronx, and I'm blessed that these guys let me be a part of the group because I see a lot of the pioneers. I get to talk to them. I get to actually interact and see where their mind stays at this moment. Not back then. What is that now? What is it that we need to do to continue?
We had Grand Wizard Theater come do a workshop at our space. And this dude, you would think he would just talk about what he used to do and how he pioneered this and that. Yeah. But he was like, no talk, let me show you what I can still do. Yeah. And killing it, doing the needle drops and the back spins and and you see the young people there, that's like they see it, they're like, yo, this is crazy. Like this dude is using a playback device and turning it into a straight instrument. You know what I'm saying? That's jazz, it's hip hop, it's everything. You know what I mean?
That's right.
If you ever want a reason to come to the South Bronx, every year we're doing it now. It's called South by South Bronx. It's our answer to this corporate festival, South by Southwest. Ours is South by South Bronx, and we're doing it the second weekend in December. So last year we had DJ Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Caz from Cold Crush put on a rap clinic. So we just, we letting everybody know South by South Bronx every year.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Let's make it a date. Let's make it a date. I'm looking forward to it. Let's make it a date.
All right, see, that's what's up.
Definitely. My last question to you is on a more serious note. The stop and frisk. You're in New York City, and it's a city where last couple of years we've seen 700,000 or more stop and frisk. The vast majority of them have been black and brown, young men. And when you look inside that number, the vast majority of those black and brown young men that have been stopped have been found to be holding no so-called illegal contraband whatsoever, at a much lower clip than their white counterparts that were stopped. Can you talk to us about the epidemic of stop and frisk, because we see it's made its way to Philadelphia, San Francisco now, and it's going city by city, and you have Ray Kelly, the commissioner there, and Michael Bloomberg, who openly endorse this wretched, racially motivated and racist policy of policing. Can you talk to folks about what the impact of stop and frisk? I don't live in New York. I read about its impact, but for folks that actually live there, like y'all live there, I'm sure that it's touched you close. I'm sure you know some folks, whether y'all may have been stopped and frisked yourselves. I don't know. Can you tell us about that?
I got stopped and frisked the other day throwing out the garbage. Like, how it is, you at the crib, it's late.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had some basketball shorts on. I just ran down, like, I got to throw the garbage out.
Yeah.
And they stopped me, and I'm like, of course I ain't got no ID on me, man. I live in this building, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was lucky that it was, whatever, but stop and frisk is an epidemic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It is legalized racial profiling. That's what the numbers show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, out of the 700,000, 84% are black and Latino.
Yeah.
10% end up in an arrest of any kind. It's mathematically proven to not work.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's also mathematically proven to be racist.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there was just a huge trial in which, that's still going on. But some of the things that were coming out were the 41st precinct, right, is the one right by our house. It was one of the main ones. And they have recordings of officers blatantly saying, like, I want you to go for black 14 to 24. Black youth. Like, they on record saying that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, when you talk about a Mike Bloomberg, and a Ray Kelly, though, these are racist people. We got to call it for what it is.
That's right.
You know what I mean? As much as El Blumito wants to try to talk Spanish, you know you ain't down with us.
Yeah, right.
So I think that, like, yeah, man, like, we have to understand that stop and frisk is an epidemic. Our people are being hunted. Here in the South Bronx, I can't talk about stop and frisk and not talk about Ramarley Graham. Right. Ramarley Graham is an 18-year-old young man who was killed inside of his bathroom.
In the Wakefield section of the Bronx, behind me, friends and family are gathered in front of the home that was that of Ramarley Graham. There are candles set up. The family and friends are still mourning 48 hours, and today, this afternoon, we finally got a look at the images of what exactly happened. The surveillance video is dramatic and telling. At 3 p.m. Thursday, 18-year-old Ramarley Graham can be seen walking into his home on East 229th in the Bronx. The NYPD rushes in seconds later without a search warrant and try to gain entry.
And he's kicking the door because the door is locked. They came in with their gun drawn.
According to a resident who was inside during the forced entry,
they did not scream police.
And there is no sign of a search warrant. The surveillance video is high grade. Its clarity, that of a professional. Clearly, the officers are seen desperately trying to break into the house through the front door. The damage evident once we got our cameras inside. The video also shows the NYPD entering through the back and then unlocking the front door. Once in, the race upstairs to Graham is on. And moments later, boom, boom, is all Paulette Minzy heard. In her bathroom and barely dressed, she suddenly had a gun in her face. Minzy then put her hands up and screams,
I'm the landlord, I'm the landlord.
Minzy said the NYPD then searched her home. They found no gun on the second floor and unarmed Ramarley Graham was dead. After everything that's happened and the death of the young boy,
The death of the young boy. And
how do you trust police?
I can't trust them. I'm scared of them. Right now, I'm scared of my life because I don't know what they will do. Because, you know, I don't know what they're doing if they saw me. I'm so scared.
Do you think they're doing their job?
No, they're not. They're not doing their job. They're not doing their job. They're cruel. They're very cruel, and I'm scared of my life because the cops come and put the gun in my face. I'm so scared.
And she's not the only one that is afraid. There are many people in this community who are on edge as well. We just had moments ago a car drive by here, and the drivers inside were actually cursing out the NYPD. This morning in Harlem, Reverend Al Sharpton had a gathering. He said that he is not anti-police, nor is the entire community. They are against officers getting gunned down. They are also against unarmed teenagers getting gunned down. Reporting from the Wakefield section of the Bronx, Mario Diaz, Pix 11 News. Kaidi?
Thank you, Mario. The shooting of Ramarley Graham has police brutality watchdog groups stirred up. They say this most recent incident is just the latest in a string of tragic events that have been caused by what they call a policy of overstepping boundaries. Activists are calling on the mayor to re-examine police operations.
Mayor Bloomberg now. Is this brother here who was beat by a police officer and thrown on his face right here in the Bronx too a few days ago? No weapon, no gun, no knife for a bag of marijuana.
They say the Graham incident did not have to lead to a death.
The police officers had no warrant to be in the house. They killed him in front of his grandmother and 6-year-old brother. You know what I mean? Shot dead. You know what I'm saying? And now there's a trial in which Officer Richard Haste from the 48th Precinct has only been charged with manslaughter. He should be charged with murder, but he's been charged with manslaughter. But we've had, you know, once again, the tactics in which hundreds of NYPD officers are showing up in court to try to intimidate the family. You know, like the South Bronx is, you know, we've known, you know, cases like Ramarley Graham historically. Right. You had Amadou Diallo, right. 41 shots over a wallet. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You had the case of you know, Anthony Rosario, Hilton Vega, Anthony Baez. Yeah. You know what I mean? The list goes on and on. Timothy Stansbury, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, you look at the recent case in Brooklyn of 16-year-old Kimani Gray. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And the uprisings that came out of that. The communities are fed up with our young people being murdered and these officers walking freely. Like Sean Bell got shot 50 times and those officers, those killers are free. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with Oscar Grant in the Bay. I mean, there's so many cases, Trayvon Martin, you know what I mean? So like, we have to understand that stop and frisk policies lead many times to murder. You know what I mean? When you dehumanize a young man and make officers reach a quota and you tell them blatantly, go out there and get me black youth from 14 to 21, you are putting a target on their back. You know what I mean? So until that stops, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep saying stop and frisk. You know what I mean? And whatever. We never going to be down with Mike Bloomberg and Ray Kelly.
That's right.
Ever.
That's right. I really appreciate that response, man. I really appreciate that answer, and yeah, I you know, heard the work that you guys have been doing around stop and frisk, and you're absolutely right. We have to continue to mobilize, galvanize, and organize our communities. You know, whether it's here in D.C. or there in New York City, and we have to just be in solidarity and keep pushing and pushing. That's the only way. We have to be consistent because they're expecting us to wear down, and it was candidate Barack Obama in May of 2008, who, when he was asked about the acquittal, that Judge Arthur Cooperman, who was the judge that handed down the acquittal of those murderous police officers that killed Sean Bell, when asked about that, Barack Obama, as if he was a part of that community in the first place, went ahead and he said, we need to not riot. No one was rioting. People were out in the streets. No one was rioting. And then he said, we need to respect the verdict of this judge. And then also said that America is a land of just laws. I mean, if anyone has been under the illusion of this dude, what he said back then was proof enough to understand like what was going to come, the following years. And as we know, he's a murderer himself. I mean, look what he's doing to our brothers and sisters in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Afghanistan. And we see the report coming out of NYU and Stanford, over 96, 97% of the people that have been killed by these drone attacks have been innocent civilians. I think the number is actually 98.5% to be exact. And to the fact that, I mean, so we could go on and on. That'll be the next interview. We'll talk about, it'll be all in foreign policy. But I really appreciate I really appreciate your time today. And it feels kind of weird for me actually to sign off by saying, this is Solomon for Critical Insight in Your World News, which I'll say formally. This is Solomon for Critical Insight in Your World News. But I'm going to give you guys the last word. But lastly, I've already introduced you, but lastly I want to say it's unfair to call you a hip-hop group, first and foremost. They're educators. They're activists. They're organizers. And yes, they're dope hip-hop artists. 2 dope MCs and a dope DJ. DJ Illinois. That's G1. That's Rod Starr. So, and I want to also say this. Folks, please go to the website. And if you guys can, I'm going to give you guys the last word. Please give your website out again, and then any parting shots that you want, you have the last word on Critical Insight today.
Again, we always want to leave people with our guiding principle, which is you can't just oppose, you got to propose. And part of our proposal is to create safe spaces for alternative culture in the South Bronx. And in light of our recent eviction, we are proposing to have ownership of a building by any means, whether we have the support of local council people or not. We're going to make that happen, and we only can do it with everybody, people supporting. Folks can support the fundraising campaign that we have to be able to obtain a new facility for us to continue our programming here in the South Bronx. And more information about that fundraising campaign can be found on our website. It's www.rdacbx, that stands for the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective in the Bronx, www.rdacbx.org. And there you'll find more information about our work here in the Bronx, about our campaign to find a new facility, about our ongoing programs, because like Rod said, even though we lost our physical space in this process of finding a new building, we still doing our programming. We still going to have our workshops, political education workshops, media workshops. We still building with our allies here in the Bronx to be able to continue that programming and still offer that. We have boogie mics as well, the open mics hosted by our brother John Mega from GTP here in the South Bronx. That's also one of the most successful forums for young people of all ages to come once a month and be able to have an audience for their music and be able to hone their skills as performers. So that's all continuing. Again, www.rdacbx.org. Rebel Diaz is a music group. We're about to drop a record called Radical Dilemma. It's a combination of a number of years of musical work that we've been doing. So we're really excited about that. Look for that definitely in the summer. And www.rebeldiaz.com, where you get more information about our music work and our upcoming tours and all of that.
Hey, real quick, I got you gotta give the interviewer some exclusives. So now we're gonna be the rap interviews. You like exclusives. So yeah, I would say we got a song called "Which Side Are You On?" On the album, we got a dope remix to it with Dead Prez and Aka Science with Dilated Peoples. So make sure to check out for that. And there's a really dope artist out of the RDAC BX called YC the Cynic that we always want to shout out because he's super dope, and I feel like he's a product of the work that's being done here in the South Bronx, as he was like 15 when he started with us, and now he's killing the scene. He's also on the album. But yeah, Radical Dilemma. If you want to find out where that title comes from, we ask that you read the book by George, the Prison Letters of George Jackson, the story of that brother. Yes. And in the beginning is an explanation of why we call our album The Radical Dilemma. That's it. We'll leave y'all with that. Peace.
Right. Peace.
All right, my G.
Peace, my bro.
I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it and burned that. Man, the way that I live don't concern that. Man, we gon' have to settle this another way. A letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it and burned that. Man, the way that I live don't concern that. Man, we gon' have to settle this another way. Movement, music, moving to it.